black-beard alien warrior faced off against a human, and lost. Not just the fight, but her entire understanding of power. What if one soldier's defiance in a death arena sparked a rebellion across the stars? This isn't just a battle. It's a message. A species once underestimated is about to rewrite the rules of the universe. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel and show a thumbs up by liking the video. It helps more than you know. Now, let's move into this wondrous story that begins not with peace but with defiance. Nolan Bryce sat cross-legged on the cold metallic floor of cell block 7, idly counting the flickering lights above his head. The number hadn't changed in weeks. 16 lights, 2 of which blinked like they were unsure whether to live or die. He figured it was a decent metaphor for his current situation. 6 months ago, he was a decorated Earth Marine stationed on a diplomatic security mission. Now, he was prisoner number 4419 in what the Galactic Dominion called a cultural adaptation center. Nolan had other names for it, none of them polite. The hiss of the opening cell door didn't make him flinch. He didn't need to look up to know who it was. Sierra Knox, the Zarnian guard with the violet-scaled face and a temper as short as her patience. Her tall frame filled the doorway like a storm cloud, her 4-fingered hands gripping a shock baton she liked far too much. Her sharp voice echoed against the walls, rough and disdainful. "You will die slowly, human filth," she hissed, her eyes glowing faintly under the harsh lighting. She spat a glowing blue glob at the floor in front of him, where it sizzled, like acid against the concrete. Nolan gave her a tired smile. "Good morning to you too, Sparkles," he said. "Love what you've done with your neck fins today. Very fashion-forward." Sierra snarled, slamming her baton against the energy field that separated them. The force crackled, sending a wave of static into his cell, but Nolan barely blinked. He'd been shocked, spat on, beaten, and insulted almost daily since arriving. They could mess with his body but not his mind. "Tomorrow you fight in the arena," Sierra said, voice curling with satisfaction. "I've placed a personal wager you won't last 2 minutes." "Generous," Nolan replied, stretching lazily on his cot. "Your friends usually bet on 30 seconds. "You'll be facing Kargax of the Silthern Clade," she added, her grin revealing jagged teeth. 17 straight victories. His last opponent dissolved in under a minute. "Let me guess. Bad reaction to losing?" Nolan quipped, but his chest tightened a little. Kargax wasn't just a name on a betting slip. That creature was built for war. Tall, armored, and fast. Every part of him was engineered for pain. Still, Nolan's expression remained light. Sierra stomped off, her laughter echoing in the corridor. Nolan exhaled, staring up at those blinking lights again. His humor was armor, and today, it was barely holding. A soft voice came from the neighboring cell. "You're pushing her too far," said Torrin Vale, a former diplomat and fellow prisoner. "They'll make an example of you." "They already are," Nolan said without looking over. "But I won't give them my fear too." Torrin sighed. "You know what happens if you lose tomorrow?" "Then I die entertaining a crowd of alien psychopaths." "Not my best plan, I admit." Later that night, as the artificial lights dimmed to simulate a night cycle, Nolan heard the telltale shuffle of boots outside his cell. A smaller, older figure appeared at the force field, Dr. Miri Dan. The last remaining human scientist in the combat wing, her white hair was tied back, and her face bore the calm weariness of someone who had seen too much. "You've got 5 minutes," grunted the guard escorting her. Miri slipped through the opening in the force field before it resealed behind her. "I brought you something," she whispered, pressing a small vial into Nolan's hand. "Synthetic adrenaline. Not to make you stronger, just long enough to stay conscious if they hit you with neurotoxins." Nolan turned the vial in his fingers, then tucked it under his cot without comment. "Thanks, Doc. Always good to have a backup plan." "I hope you won't need it," she said quietly. "The extraction fleet is 3 weeks out." His eyes flicked up. "That close?" Miri nodded. "We're not alone. Some of us have hacked into the Dominion's comms. They don't know yet." He sat up straighter. "Good. Then I just have to survive one monster, maybe two. She reached out and placed a hand on his arm. Be careful, Nolan. You're not just fighting for yourself anymore. You're the first human to get this far. If you win, it changes everything. He gave her a lopsided grin. No pressure, then. The guard barked her time was up. Miri squeezed his hand once and left without another word. Nolan sat there for a while, the silence of the cell settling back in. He resumed his nightly routine, push-ups, squats, and shadow strikes against imaginary foes. Not for glory, not for fun, for survival. They had made one mistake, these aliens. They thought humans were weak, soft, and breakable. What they didn't understand was that humanity didn't just endure. It adapted, it evolved, and when pushed, it didn't break. It fought back with spite, with grit, and with the stubbornness of a species that had crawled its way out of the mud and into the stars. Nolan wiped sweat from his brow and glanced at the hidden vial again. Tomorrow the galaxy would watch. They expected him to die. Maybe he would, or maybe, just maybe. He'd show them exactly what a human could do. The arena smelled like rust and heat. Nolan Bryce stood just behind the rising gate, staring out into a vast pit of red sand under a sky that wasn't real. Artificial lights above mimicked a bright alien sun, and the cheering of thousands of creatures echoed through the structure like rolling thunder. Every species in the Dominion had come to see him die. He stepped forward, his boots crunching softly into the red dust. Around him, the arena walls rose high, lined with seats filled with spectators, some clicking, some hissing, some waving, glowing tendrils in excitement. Nolan scanned the crowd without blinking. They weren't here for justice. They were here for blood. His blood. A tall alien with shimmering skin and eyes like pools of silver stood at the center platform. Curator Trin, the so-called master of ceremonies. Nolan had met enough politicians and bureaucrats to know a snake when he saw one, even if it had two hearts and didn't blink. Specimen 44 one-tine of Earth, the curator announced, voice amplified. By translator implants, you face General Kargax of the Silthern Clade. Let this cultural demonstration determine your species' place within the Dominion. From the opposite side of the arena, a massive door opened with a low mechanical growl. Nolan tightened his grip on the staff in his hand. It wasn't much. A smooth black rod, maybe 6 feet long. No blades, no tech, just wood-like material, meant to make the match look fair. Kargax emerged like a nightmare made real. 8 feet tall, layered in black and green armor that looked grown rather than forged, with 4 arms ending in hooked claws and glowing green lines running down his chest. The crowd roared louder, like this was a reunion show and he was the star. Nolan exhaled slowly. Well, he muttered to himself. At least he didn't bring a fan club banner. Kargax wasted no time. As soon as the third signal horn blared, the alien charged across the arena with terrifying speed. Each step shook the ground. Nolan didn't move until the last moment. He sidestepped sharply and spun, using the staff to hook behind Kargax's left leg. The move was simple, one he'd learned in his first month of combat training back on Earth. But Kargax wasn't expecting it. The huge alien stumbled, momentum throwing him forward. Nolan didn't pause. He struck fast. 2 quick jabs with the staff into the small gaps between Kargax's armor plates near the back of his knee. The creature howled, stumbling again as he turned. The crowd went quiet for a moment, unsure of what they'd just seen. Nolan knew better than to get cocky. Kargax was up again, this time moving with caution. He circled Nolan, eyes narrowing. His first 2 limbs stayed low, the other 2 raised defensively. This wasn't just a beast. It was a trained killer. You adapt quickly, Nolan muttered. Kargax lunged again. This time, Nolan barely dodged. The claws grazed his side, tearing through the edge of his uniform. Pain flared up his ribs, but he kept moving. He struck upward, landing a blow on Kargax's elbow joint. The alien snarled in pain, but didn't stop. Nolan ducked, rolled, and aimed for the exposed neck joint. His staff hit hard, causing a spray of pale green fluid to splatter across the red sand. The noise in the arena rose again, this time mixed with confusion. The human was winning. Kargax roared and slashed wildly. Nolan jumped back, panting now. He was fast, but his body was human, limited. Kargax came at him with a sweeping blow. Nolan ducked again and thrust the staff upward into the alien's jaw. It was the same spot Dr. Miri had pointed out the night before, an exposed nerve channel. The hit landed perfectly. Kargax froze. His limbs shook violently. Nolan moved behind. Him used the end of the staff to strike again at the back of his neck. With a loud thud, the alien collapsed onto the sand face first, unmoving. Silence dropped over the arena like a heavy curtain. Nolan stood over his fallen opponent, sweat dripping from his forehead, his staff still held high. The crowd didn't know how to react. This wasn't how it was supposed to end. The human wasn't supposed to win. Not like this. Curator Trin's voice broke the silence. General Kargax is unable to continue. The human is victorious. That single sentence changed everything. The arena erupted into chaos. Some cheered, some screamed, others threw objects or stomped away in anger. But none of them could change the result. Nolan didn't wait for anyone to tell him what to do. He walked off the field without looking back. As he passed the weapons rack, he placed the staff down gently and rolled his shoulders. His side still burned, but he was alive. Back in the holding wing, Torin and the other prisoners stared as he entered. For once, no one had anything sarcastic to say. "You did it," Torin whispered. "For now," Nolan said, sinking onto the edge of his cot. "Let's just see what victory gets us." From the far end of the corridor, one of the guards, a Zarnian like Syrah, was watching. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes lingered on Nolan for a long time. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. There were still 16 lights, and now, none of them were blinking. Nolan Bryce wasn't used to clean floors or soft lights. So when the guards led him through the inner corridors of the Dominion's adaptation facility, past the flickering prison cells, past the reinforced gates, he felt like he'd accidentally wandered into a hotel for rich aliens. The walls shimmered with silver metal, smooth and strangely warm under the dull lighting. There were no other prisoners here, no shouting guards, only silence and the buzz of something important about to happen. They stopped in front of a door taller than any he'd seen before. The guard didn't speak. With a wave of a clawed hand, the door hissed open. Inside was a room that could have belonged to a politician or a warlord. There were soft seating pads, faint music playing in the background, something stringed and eerie, and even what looked like plants, though Nolan wasn't sure if they were real or breathing. Curator Trin stood by a wide window that showed the stars outside. His platinum skin gleamed in the artificial light, and his silver eyes reflected Nolan's image perfectly. He didn't turn to greet him. "Specimen 44 One-Tine," Trin said smoothly. "Or do you prefer Nolan Bryce?" Nolan crossed his arms. "Either works. Depends on whether you're going to offer me a drink or a needle." The curator finally turned, his face calm, unreadable. "You were never expected to survive. Not only did you survive, you won in a way no one predicted. That has made things complicated." "Complicated how?" Nolan asked, though he already had a pretty good idea. Trin moved toward one of the seating pads but didn't sit. The Dominion system for classifying new species relies on behavior. How you fight, how you surrender, how you accept your place in a structure built to ensure order. Humans were assumed to be aggressive but manageable, predictable in your violence. But you showed restraint. "I didn't spare Kargax because I was feeling soft," Nolan said. "I needed to make a point. Mercy was the weapon that hit hardest." "Exactly," Trin replied, eyes narrowing. "You understand strategy. Worse, you understand perception. You altered the narrative of your species with one decision. That is dangerous." Nolan smiled faintly. "Glad to be helpful." Trin studied him, as if trying to see something behind his expression. The High Council is watching. They are debating whether your kind is ready to join the Dominion as members, or whether you must be quarantined permanently. You mean locked up, studied, or wiped out? Nolan said. Don't take it personally, Trin replied. No one is above containment if they threaten balance. Before Nolan could respond, the door behind him opened again. Another figure entered. It was taller than any guard, broader than most of the arena warriors. Dark red armor clung to her body like living stone, and her glowing eyes were locked on him with something more than anger. It was curiosity. General Kargax had called. Her sister once. This was Commander Ravana, Kargax's replacement and one of the Dominion's top tacticians. Nolan knew her from the intelligence files Dr. Miri had passed him. What he didn't expect was her sudden bow. I am not here to challenge you, she said. Her voice was low, like gravel sliding across metal. I am here to understand why my kin lies in recovery, defeated, yet not slain. Nolan straightened slightly. You could just ask him. He refuses to speak of it, Ravana said. Only that he was bested in combat and allowed to live. He says you showed something beyond victory. I need to know if that was weakness or strength. It was choice, Nolan said simply. Your people seem to think mercy is a flaw. Where I'm from, sometimes it's the strongest move you can make. Ravana stared at him, unmoving. Then she turned to Trin. This human is not like the others. Trin gave a slow nod. That's what concerns us. A soft sound broke the tension, the chirp of a Dominion communication node. Trin tapped a device on his wrist. After a few moments, he turned to Nolan again. It seems you've attracted more attention. General Mayex, head of Dominion Security, has requested a live review of your actions in the arena, including your words. Nolan raised an eyebrow. You want a replay? We want to know your intention and what you represent, Trin said. That match didn't just change your status, it shook the structure. Some on the council think you're a hero. Others think you're a threat. I think you're something new. Before Nolan could reply, a second voice came from the doorway. This one was sharp but familiar. I have invoked a binding protocol. Everyone turned to see the massive figure of Kargax entering the room. He walked slowly but without weakness. There were visible scars from the match, but he carried himself with pride. I was defeated, Kargax said, looking directly at Nolan, and spared. According to the rights of the Clade, I owe you a life debt. Until it is repaid, I am yours. To command, Nolan blinked. That's not exactly why I spared you. It does not matter, Kargax interrupted. The code is older than any of us. It binds me. Trin stared at the alien warrior, then back at Nolan. You are forcing us into unknown territory. I'm not forcing anything, Nolan said, feeling the weight of what was happening. I'm just surviving. The Dominion's the one writing the rules. I'm just showing you how humans play. For the first time, Trin looked unsure. We don't know what to do with you. Nolan smiled again. Good. That means you're thinking. And in that moment, he knew. This wasn't just a fight for his life anymore. It was a fight for the future of his species. And maybe, just maybe, they were winning. The halls of the Dominion facility no longer felt like a prison. They felt like a battlefield waiting to ignite. Nolan Bryce moved through them with quiet focus, his boots silent on the polished floor. Every step he took echoed with purpose. Whispers followed him, among guards, among prisoners, even among the Dominion's own staff. The human who survived the arena, the human who showed mercy, the human with a life debt-bound warrior at his side. No one knew what to expect from him anymore, and that made him dangerous in a way the Dominion had never planned for. General Kargax walked beside him, no longer an enemy, but something stranger, a protector, bound by ancient honor. His towering frame drew stares wherever they went, but no one challenged them. The rules were changing, and Nolan was at the center of it. Back in the prisoner wing, word had spread that a fleet, Earth's fleet, was getting closer. The science, Team had broken through the last layer of the Dominion's encrypted systems. 3 weeks, maybe less. Extraction was no longer just a dream whispered in the dark. It was real. But survival until then wasn't guaranteed. Inside the meeting chamber, Dr. Miri Dan was waiting. Her face was lined with worry, but her eyes brightened when she saw Nolan. He handed her a datapad stolen from the lower archives. "Everything I could find on internal routes, security blind spots, and ship movement logs," he said. "If we're getting out, we'll need more than a miracle. We'll need a plan." Miri took it with a nod. "We're working on sinking. A signal with the extraction fleet. If they don't get a landing beacon, they won't risk coming in, too dangerous." She looked at Kargax, who stood silently behind Nolan. "Are you sure we can trust him?" "He had the chance to kill me and didn't," Nolan said. "Now we're even." "Not yet," Kargax replied. "The debt remains." That night, in the lower levels of the facility, Nolan met with the others, Torin, Miri, and a few others from the science wing. They'd formed a quiet alliance, using moments between patrols and meal shifts to trade information and build a strategy. The idea wasn't just to escape. It was to take a stand. To show the galaxy that humans wouldn't accept cages, even golden ones. They decided the arena was their best chance. It was the only place in the facility where Dominion rules bent, slightly. It was a stage, a symbol, and most importantly, a weak point. The plan was risky. During the next scheduled match, they'd take control of the broadcast systems, trigger the signal beacon, and hold the arena until the extraction fleet arrived. They didn't expect to win a war. They just needed to hold out long enough. The day came faster than anyone liked. Nolan stood once again beneath the arena, staring at the same gate he had walked through weeks before. This time, though, he wasn't a single fighter. Behind him stood Kargax and 3 more prisoners who had volunteered to help. Above them, the stands were packed with alien spectators, unaware that today's entertainment was about to become a declaration. As the gate opened, Nolan stepped into the light. The roar of the crowd was deafening, but this time he didn't hear it as fear. He heard it as fuel. Kargax moved to his side, his massive form calm and alert. The others fanned out, taking their positions. Across the arena, Dominion guards waited. This wasn't a match, it was a warning. The signal began with a flicker on the arena's giant screen, then a flash, then the words in dozens of languages. "This is not a demonstration, this is a message." Miri's voice came through the system. "To the High Council, to the Dominion, and to every species watching, Earth is not yours to conquer. We are not your pawns. We are not your prey." Panic spread through the stands. Guards moved in, but the outer gates locked down, just as planned. Torin had triggered the failsafes from the tech room. Everything was working. For now. The fight came quickly. Guards stormed the arena floor, weapons raised. Nolan moved first, striking with precision, not rage. Kargax followed, roaring like thunder, cutting through attackers with deadly grace. The others held the line. For 10 minutes they fought, and then the sky changed. A bright streak cut through the artificial sky as a ship dropped from orbit, sleek and glowing with the blue lights of Earth's extraction fleet. The crowd scattered. Dominion commanders shouted orders, but it was too late. The extraction pod landed in the center of the arena. Nolan turned to Kargax. "You don't have to come." The alien warrior looked up at the stars. "I pledged my strength until the debt is paid. You spared my life. Now I guard yours." Together they stepped into the pod. Later, on the extraction ship, as Earth's forces pulled away from the Dominion world, Nolan stood by a window. The stars stretched out ahead, open, unknown, and full of promise. Miri joined him, resting a hand on his shoulder. "You changed everything." He shook his head. "I just showed them who we really are." Behind them, Kargax watched silently. A creature once bred for war, now bound to something greater. The Dominion had tried to cage a species it didn't understand. In doing so, it awakened something it couldn't control. And as the stars rushed by, Nolan knew this wasn't the end of the story, it was just the beginning.